Night of the Living Geeks.
All right, guys, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Giant Sword Podcast.
Woo!
And with me today, of course, are my noble and hairy are Taylor.
Hello, hello.
Connor.
Hodly hodly, neighborino.
Pretty good, pretty good. Sorry you missed last week's episode. We had life problems. Nah, we were on vacation. It was nice.
Wait, who are you? The people don't know who you are.
Oh, yeah, and I'm Nickaroony.
Nick Lind,
Nick
to
Lind.
be sure.
Do I ever, in the last two podcasts, have I ever introduced myself?
Your anonymity is probably good to preserve. You know,
Exactly.
Assassins and the government, and be coming after you and whatnot.
They
Keep
already
a low
are.
profile.
All right, let's get to the meat of things. I mean, we're a JRPG podcast, so we'll stop BSing about.
The JRPGs are so good with slow opening. They take a long time to get going.
yeah. It's only
We're trying to keep a theme here.
It's a giant metaphor for how JRPGs are really played.
And suddenly it speeds up and, you have a group
Becomes
blast.
awesome.
So that being said,
No.
let's get.
Yeah, hey, what have you guys been doing? Have you been playing any interesting games that are not topics this week?
Well, I have. I mean, I dug up a moldy oldie that's a classic in my book. It's called Legend of Legaia. It was like a 1998 RPG from super random company Procyon, which I've never heard of anywhere else. But been playing that one. It's one I've beaten a couple times in the past, and you guys have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty great with the really innovative battle system. But other than that, I just bought a copy of Saga Frontier, which is that Squaresoft RPG from also 1998, which is like the golden age of Squaresoft RPGs. So
They were just
I
pumping
feel
them out.
Right. I mean, that was like Tactics, Xenogears, Final Fantasy VII, all that stuff. And so I feel like it's crazy that there's a Squaresoft RPG from that time that I haven't played. So I saw Saga Frontier sitting on the shelf. I picked it up.
Nice. I have that too, but I just sitting on my desk.
Never got around to it, huh?
I have a lot of JRPGs I haven't gone around with.
Well, I guess it would be insane if every single game they put out in that 2-year span was just pure gold. I guess they had to have one clunker, right? But I will find out for myself. Maybe I will like it a lot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
How about you, Taylor?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I've been playing this game on 3DS called Rhythm Heaven Megamix. It's like a collection of
That's
mini
not a
games.
JRPG, man.
You just said things.
What have you been playing as a JRPG?
As a JRPG, you said something that's not a topic. You weren't specific. Nothing. I mean, just more Star Ocean, pretty much, which I've covered quite a bit. Did I play anything? I was messing around with Legendary Dragoon earlier. We just had a giant kind of hangout game session today. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Shout out to the Legend of Dragoon combo system that forces you to press X in timing with the strikes of your character's combos.
Yeah,
it's like a really interesting skill-based element to turn-based RPGs, which usually there's no skill-based elements. It's all preparation and strategy-based. So
What's neat about that too is the more you nail it, the more you level
the skill up.
the skill up, and then you unlock new ones. So if you just keep missing, then you're not going to get the next one. I think that's how it works.
Man, some of those combos were stinking hard in that game, though.
Yeah, they were. It's like because it was sort of some of them were very irregular too.
Yeah, like some of the Lavitz, the spearman guy.
Yeah.
ones,
Oh yeah,
like,
his were hard.
Volcano. No, that was one of Dart's.
Gust of Wind
Whatever.
Dance.
Gust of Wind Dance. That was the one that was like 5 combos long and it was impossible to nail.
Yeah, it was pretty hard for sure.
Speaking of...
Shout out Legend of Dragoon. You were saying, sir?
Speaking of skill-based JRPGs, I've been playing Shadow Hearts Covenant.
At the behest of our good friend Ben Moore,
Yes.
who when we asked him what's your favorite like undercover RPG that's gone over most people's or under most people's radars, that was what he said. He says it's one of the best RPGs on PS2. So naturally,
I tried. I had it and I never played it. Now I'm trying it, and it's great.
Well, that's lucky that you had it.
Oh yeah, I had
It
it
was just
because
sitting
I
on the
enjoyed
shelf.
Shadow Hearts, the first one.
Okay.
So I went on a JRPG buying spree on PS2 a while back, and that's what I did.
Now, do you feel silly for it having collected dust on your shelf for so long?
Yes, I feel silly because I have all these JRPGs that I haven't played, and I need to play them. And I'm like, I gotta play these.
Oh,
Why'd I spend money on them?
Also,
Exactly.
I did finally buy a copy of Xenosaga, the first one on PS2, because as a reputed Xenogears fanatic, I have to see what's next in the series. And I played like a couple hours of it years ago and couldn't get into it. It's probably just a case of like wishing it was
Xenogears.
The other game in the series. But I'm going to try to set that aside, so we'll see if I can do some on Xenosaga, but who knows.
I don't know. Also, guys, I beat Persona 3.
Nice.
Finally.
Props to you, sir.
Bravo, bravo.
It's always good when you can just scratch one off the list,
Yep.
Done. Beat it. Did it.
Totally.
Unsatisfying ending. Sorry. But great game. Really fun. They have
mini topic. Is that a spoiler or not? To say it's an unsatisfying ending.
No.
Do you think there's... I mean, you're not revealing anything about the plot, but could you say that a spoiler is something that changes someone's perception of the game as they play it?
No. Unsatisfying ending for me.
Okay.
Okay.
See, that's a good way to hedge it there.
Yes.
It's a good way to hedge it, yeah.
Because
then we could just attribute it to your lofty expectations or something.
exactly. Because I knew the ending. I knew what happened to the characters. It didn't happen in the main game. It happens in the answer, which is an expansion to the game.
It's like an epilogue?
Yeah,
But
and
it's like 40
It's like another 40
hours.
hours, and I'm like, I'm not doing this again.
Who's responsible for this?
I'm just gonna read it. So read about it. And
There's such a thing as games being too long, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Lunar 2, one of my all-time classics. More on that later. Like you, air quotes, beat that game, and then there's an epilogue that's like 6 more dungeons, and each of them are probably like 4 to 5 hours each. And it's just like this massive like addition to the end of the game, and it's mostly like it's not really story stuff. It's just like more dungeon crawling for people who are super into the game. But it's like, man, there is such a thing as overloading your consumer there.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it, and it was just the Tartarus without. I mean, it's just Persona 3 without social links and just Tartarus. And
Oh,
I'm like,
it's
boring.
I'm not gonna do this.
Oh, the hours thing or whatever you said.
The answer,
The answer, yeah.
which is like the second
Hours.
part of it. Yeah, it's just
The answer.
Yeah,
Alan Iverson. What?
it's called the Journey, and then the second one's called The Answer. So
I mean, cool subtitles, I guess, but
But
important sounding.
yeah, very important sounding.
Very grave sounding.
not to pick sides here, but would you say you preferred Persona 4 or 3 overall? Because it's different, like, right? It could be like the journey of the game is may have been better, but Persona 4 may have had a better ending or something like that. Like,
Before you answer, Nick, it feels crazy to even ask, given just how much praise you've lavished on Persona 4, like over the years, Taylor. It's like it seems like to me, as someone who hasn't played either, that 4 would be like the clear-cut favorite. But Nick, what do you think?
I like 4's cheery atmosphere of characters. Like, okay, so I like the characters in 4 better, and I like how they interact, because it was like, they got their stride. Like, the developers got their stride. They know what they're making.
Right. They get comfortable with their
I do like the characters in 3, but they're not as interesting because you don't get to know them as much. There's not as much interesting story stuff happening. But I like the tone of Persona 3 more.
It's kind of a little darker, more evil.
It's way darker, yeah.
okay.
It's a little more my speed.
Mm-hmm. A lot slower though. That's the pacing of Persona 3 is worse than Persona 4.
Well, you totally just sat on the fence right between the two, so I'm just going to say right here, pick one.
Pick one.
Just to be a bully.
All right. If you want to play one, play Persona 4.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. He goes with the status quo. All right.
Exactly.
Persona.
I thought Nick, the eternal contrarian, would just have to ruffle some feathers and say 3 there, but
No.
we'll see.
4. 4. You should go with 4.
Well, fair enough. So do we want to move on to the next topic, my good man?
Yes. How about you? You know what you want to. You know the topic, so you let it. Introduce
Yeah,
it.
you guys suggest this one to me, but I've been talking about this game that I've been playing for a while. It's a series that was ubiquitous on Super Nintendo and PS1, and then kind of disappeared a bit. There was a title on PS2, but it was kind of more seemed like a spin-off than a continuation of the series. It's Breath of Fire. I believe I pray I'm getting this right. There's 2 installments, 1 and 2 on Super Nintendo, and then 3 and 4 were both on PS1, and then Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter was on PS2. And it was a series that I was always really interested in because it has a couple elements that I really like an anthropomorphic dragon protagonist named Ryu who like recurs in different iterations in all the games, and like I always like kind of like the recurring hero, and plus like being able to turn into a dragon is freaking sweet. And so the game is all about like the games are all about like your dragon heritage and stuff like that, and it always just felt like a really classic JRPG that I never knew anything about. So I started playing 3, and I guess I'll just ask you guys like how much do you know about the Breath of Fire series, or 3 specifically?
Go, Taylor.
I've watched, I think we either played or I watched you play one time in the beginning of 3, where and one thing I thought was cool is its seamless transitions to battles. Like you're walking around, you see an enemy, and then wherever you are just becomes the battlefield, which is neat, even though it's turn-based. So there's like the seamlessness, which is pretty cool.
Kind of a la Chrono Trigger.
Exactly. And I kind of remember like the beginning being like him being on the run or something like that. Like I remember being in a farm or some cave or something. Is that sounding about right?
Yeah. It's that's, I mean, no spoilers, but yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Events transpire and they have to get the hell out of Dodge.
Okay.
Where you start the game. So, but Nick, how about you?
I played number 1 and number 2 on Game Boy Advance.
Oh wow!
I didn't know those ports.
Yeah, there are ports on it. I don't remember a single thing about it, but I know I've played them.
Okay. Well, it's like on the tile-based like 8-bit old RPGs like that, like Super Nintendo and prior. Like it's kind of hard to tell a lot of them apart because the medium, like at that point, had not differentiated itself, like the games, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So most of them are just like 8-bit sprites on a tile-based map, you know. It's like quest to save the princess or what have you.
Well, I played a lot of it, so I did enjoy it, but I don't remember it at all.
A long time ago, you're saying.
Yeah. It was during the Game Boy Advance era, so probably around 2003.
For sure.
Sure.
Well, I just wanted to talk about it a bit because it always seemed like a series that kind of reeked of like importance as far as like JRPG classicness. It just has like the good sprites, really colorful, like great character design, great art, and like a really peppy soundtrack that can like get really creepy at sometimes too, which is like an important dichotomy to have for a game where you can be really bright and cheerful and also really kind of creepy. But either way, like it's got all the elements of a classic RPG, and the battle system is great too, where your main character Ryu can collect these genes, like dragon genes from like various places like around the game throughout your adventure, and then when you turn into the dragon, you select up to 3 genes, and so there's like all these different combinations of a kind of dragon you can become for like 4 or 5 turns or however long you need, based on what genes you have. So say if you had like a fire gene, like a defense gene, and then a reverse gene, like the reverse one will make the fire and defense ones into like frost and offense genes.
Oh, weird.
And so like you can do all these crazy combinations that result in wacky things, and it's a great system. And so I just I haven't gotten too far yet, but so far it's really addicting, like both story wise and like gameplay wise, because the story is like really keeps pushing you along in a really interesting fashion as far as the plot itself, which can, like when a game has a bad plot, it's just nothing turns you off faster.
Right, especially in a JRPG, right? Like the whole crux sometimes is the plot.
So story based, so story centric. But the difficulty of it is what keeps me going too, where it's like it requires grinding and like careful attention to detail. Otherwise, you could like wipe your party on like a random battle even. But that's like the kind of difficulty that makes it all the more rewarding when you press onward. Because it's like you'll die for sure, but it's like it's reasonable, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like you just have to learn from your mistakes and pick up and move forward. And like some RPGs, it's just like you get killed by an enemy and it's just totally unfair and random. And it's like, this isn't Breath of Fire. Like it's stern but fair, you know, like a good teacher.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I'll keep you guys posted as I keep going through the Breath of Fire 3, because like the art of the series has always intrigued me, and I'm happy to like finally be getting to like know it a little bit. And then Breath of Fire 4 later in the PS1 era seems really interesting too, and I have a copy of that too. So
yeah, I always remember the art style of Breath of Fire 4 specifically being like pretty striking. Like it's got like a lot of like bright colors and kind of has like a pastel kind of look to it. And
yeah, it's that art style where they they don't use outlines. You know, so it's like all the colors just sit right on top of each other, and it kind of gives it that like pastel-y kind of, I don't know, smoother feel, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Less like angular.
Yeah, and I kind of always liked when games on the PS1 did the whole like character models are sprites, but then the environments are like these 3D models.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be wrong, but I think that's what Fire Emblem, both of them do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
with the rotatable cameras, like
Yeah.
360 degrees is like really great. A couple classic games that are like that are like Grandia,
Mm-hmm.
Xenogears, of course,
mhm.
and Breath of Fire as well. So
Mhm. That's about all I know about Breath of Fire. And you know what's really weird is that's made by Capcom.
yeah,
Like
totally
you
trippy.
don't typically think of Capcom as a JRPG company, especially now. But it'd be interesting to see them maybe take another stab at it at some point. I know that there's a 6, but it's a mobile-only game or something in Japan.
It seems ugly.
So, yeah, I'd be curious to see if, maybe they
I
do
remember
it.
when that was announced. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, a Breath of Fire 6 for mobile."
Oh, yeah.
Womp,
People
womp,
with
womp, womp.
pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
But Dragon Quarter, the subtitled spin-off on PS2 was really fun too. It was really interesting battle system, but it was kind of like mired in all those problems that plagued like early PS2 RPGs, where the graphics are just really monotonous and like really blocky, and they just didn't nail the visuals or the feel at all. The system was there, like the combat system and the ability system and everything. So it's something that would be really awesome to revisit. But for now, I'm satisfied just taking a couple of history lessons in old school PS1 RPGs, because it's good to find like a classic playable one that you just have no familiarity with. So it's a rare treat.
Let's take another dip with a classic PS1 JRPG.
Oh yeah.
We've all played Lunar.
Oh yeah. Hell yeah. Are you kidding me? Lunar 1 and 2 are both great.
There you go. I want to discuss what makes it so great. What makes it the the proper JRPG? What would you call it?
Well, you take the stage there, Taylor.
Well, so here's what I would say. We were talking about this before, and I feel like it is the quintessential and maybe almost stereotypical JRPG in a lot of ways. And
Like if someone was asking like what's a JRPG, like just you like show them like 5 minutes of Lunar, basically.
yeah,
It's
pretty
kinda
much. Because even the story is like, it has all the tropes, right? Like, you go on an adventure with your friends, like you have this love interest that's also your best friend or whatever.
It's also your childhood friend.
Yeah, and
There's
then
4 divine dragons that you have to defeat, and
right to become the dragon master and stuff like that. But it's like told in like a really cool way, and you're like really, I don't know, there's certain charm to all the characters and stuff like that, and that makes them really enduring and like endearing. Sorry.
enduring. That makes it sound like so much more intense.
Yeah,
Like
they
you're
last
talking about-
forever.
Yeah, like you're talking about like literature or something classical.
But the other thing that's really neat too is I think this was, in the early days of CD-based gaming, and it had all these like really nice hand-drawn like anime cutscenes and stuff like that, and there was a ton of voice acting, which again was pretty rare for RPGs back then.
Especially like voice acting that they like kind of nailed, because like most of the voice acting like back then was either like really like understated or just like overtly bad.
Yeah. I think they just didn't know what video game voice acting was supposed to be, so I feel like a lot of time people just didn't try,
Yeah. Nick, you want to look something up for me actually, just when Lunar 1 and 2 came out? I mean, I'm trying to remember right now, but it's not important anyway, but it's
I could tell you it first came out on a Sega system.
Yeah, it was Sega CD, I know that for sure.
by Working Designs was the company, right?
Game Arts developed it and Working Designs brought it over from Japan.
Oh, okay. But either way, just as far as what makes Lunar like the complete JRPG experience, because like a lot of the best ones, like and best games in the genre that we like, can be really like dark and kind of brooding, like Final Fantasy or Xeno, the one I like to always bring up. It's like those are games that are like really emotionally intense and like can be like kind of dark or scary, but like a great JRPG has that, sure. But like most of them have like they have to have like just the elements of like delight and happiness and peppiness and humor, and it's like it has to cover the whole like spectrum of feelings, not just like super serious badass warriors trying to save the earth. Like Lunar 1 and 2, neither of them shy away from just like dirty jokes and humor sometimes. Like but also like really elevated ideas and topics sometimes too. So it's like, and just the super like not overly, but the really peppy soundtrack, like all the sound, the town songs.
Oh yeah, they're very like super upbeat. Oh yeah,
it's just like makes you want to just get up and just shake your ass. Yeah, thank you for the generous round of applause.
So I got a couple interesting bits of information here. So the original Lunar, it's just called Lunar. The Silver Star was on Sega CD. It was released in America in 1993. I didn't realize it was that old. Okay, so.
Damn.
Well, you could look at it. It looks. It
yeah,
looks
I know,
old.
but it's like I guess the fact that Lunar 2, which came out later, like was the exact same art style, was like I kind of just assumed like this is how they like to make games.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was a guess, I would have said like 96 or 97 on.
So
Lunar.
the PlayStation version came out in 96.
Well, there you go.
Or sorry, the Sega Saturn in Japan came out in 96. The PlayStation version came out in 1999 in America. And I guess technically it's a remake. This Wikipedia says it's a remake of the original Sega CD. I've never seen the Sega CD version, so
maybe it's just a little bit more low res or something. Because like
could be, yeah.
The PlayStation Lunar, both 1 and 2, they're 8-bit, but they're really polished looking 8-bit. It's like really good looking environments and everything. So. And
then there was the PSP remake, which that's the one I beat. I played a lot of the original though.
They put that out on iOS too.
Yeah, that's true.
I have that on my phone.
Silver Star Story complete.
So yeah, friends, if you need a new phone game, go and snag yourself Lunar Silver Star Story on the App Store.
There you go.
I mean, can't go wrong on that.
Hold on, Silver Star.
But
I think this was in like 2008 or something like that. I want to make sure.
Yeah, I think
2010.
Yeah, it was during when I was in college, so it has to be after 2008.
Yeah, it's got really nice like remade visuals and stuff like that. And
yeah, I almost kind of prefer the old visuals just because they're so like classic to me at this point.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who's new to the series, I mean, you're not going to mind the difference.
I think one of my favorite, like all I remember. Okay, let me back up. So I've played Lunar 2. I own it. I think I've put in like 10 hours or something like that. But the one line that sticks out from that game is "Lady Luck, be kind" or whatever. The guy that just throws his dice or whatever.
Yeah. That's that character Ronfar, the gambler.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
the gambling, dirty talking priest. God, he's one of the best characters in all RPGs. Constant source of hilarity at all the wrong times.
Yeah.
When hilarity is not warranted.
Yep.
Oh, God, Ronfar is the best. But yeah, when you use anger dice, that's what he yells. But for some reason, just with that voice bit, he like uses this like weird, like throaty, scratchy voice. Does not sound like the same guy at all.
Because he says, I think,
like, "Lady Luck, be kind."
Yeah.
It's like that's not his voice at all. It's just. And plus, you use that ability so much that, like in boss battles, you hear it just like every single turn. It's like,
I think that line specifically stands out because he says it weird. I'm like, what is behind? It's like he's saying with some kind of accent or something. It's very strange.
Yeah, like he's like eating popcorn. He's trying to clear his throat or something. But either way, Lunar, I felt like deserved a shout out on the Giant Sword podcast because as far as JRPGs go, it's like it just nails every element of a classic JRPG, like we've said. And so I know you guys had some reverence for it too.
Yeah,
but I was thinking about Lunar the other day and just thinking about it with the fondest memories. And so I want to recommend it to all our listeners. And
it's not a long game, so
it's not terribly
20 hours or something like that. Yeah,
and plus once you get into it, like you just have to get to the next town, have to get to the next dungeon, and
it sucks you in for sure.
Except for what's the friend's name?
The fat guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
Ramus.
Yeah.
Oh, in Lunar 1.
Yeah.
Stupid Ramus.
He ends up being a G though. He ends up pulling some total G shit in the plot.
Yeah. I think the only thing that annoys me about Lunar 1 is there's this dungeon where like there's supposed to be music playing and there's like the tunnels are blocked up, so it plays this really annoying song and you have to like go fix it. Do you guys remember that part?
Oh, it's been so long.
specifics are escaping me.
Okay, but yeah, I just remember that part being like really annoying because you have to go hit all these switches, and if you don't hit them in the right order, you have to like fight a battle and stuff like that. So anyway,
Well, that's classic, just RPG, like old RPG, not giving crap about your feelings.
yeah, exactly.
Raining turds on you at all times.
I think what a big memory for me is I think you were like in a marsh, and
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
And there's these big poisonous pools. And
Yep.
You're trying to outrun the enemies that chase you, and while avoiding the big poisonous pools that totally butcher your health pool.
Yep. And I just remember fighting like enemies, and then everyone would just be poisoned. Like, I'm gonna die. It
Yeah.
was so.
That's one of those games where if you're not leveled up to the area that you're trying to explore, that game will just make you sad.
Yeah.
But I would really love for them to do a third one because they also, were the developers of Grandia.
Dude, I just want Game Arts to come back.
Yeah, seriously.
They
came up with some gems.
Yeah, they've been doing weird stuff over there. Like they had this game called like Decoro or something like that. It was this weird Vita exclusive. It was like some platformer game.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong with the name, but yeah, they've been doing some weird stuff. So I would love for them, even if it looked like the PSP remake. Like it doesn't have to be like mind blowing graphics or anything.
Well, I mean, the 8-bit feel is kind of like in vogue. Still, it's like look at Shovel Knight, Rogue Legacy, all this stuff.
That's
it's like
true.
you don't get hated on for having 8-bit graphics or 16-bit graphics anymore, as long as you pull it off and have cool art.
That would almost probably get more attention for them to be like, we're going to bring this classic series back, but we're not going to make the graphics better. We're going to keep it the same. Like, how awesome would that be? Like, literally use the old engine.
Totally agree.
Well,
that's kind of like when how like the original Mega Man games, they went 1 through 8.
Yeah.
And then they made Mega Man 9 and 10 with like all new levels and all new bosses, and it was all the same old crappy 8-bit graphics, except the game was even harder. Kind of like that,
so
where
much
you
harder.
just like revive it, but keep the feel and the spirit intact.
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be so good.
Oh, dude, I would lose it. That would be almost as cool as if they made like a Mega Man Legends 3 or something. Because that's definitely not why I bought a 3DS, because I heard that game was announced.
You're not bitter about it at all either.
Oh,
not,
no.
not at all.
I'm pretty pretty benevolent about it, as my eye twitches uncontrollably.
I just want a new Grandia. Like,
Well,
a really nice, like, really good-looking game, but it's Grandia.
well, keep praying at the foot of your bed there, son.
I will every night.
Yeah, do your Hail Marys and your what have yous.
Lunar. I still, yeah, that game is memorable for me because I think that was Brian bought that game.
Lunar.
Yeah, and
I heard of it from you, Nick.
Yeah, it was the collector's edition, and I used to always watch the behind the scenes stuff because I had like a behind the
I
scenes
had
CD.
that too.
That mega pack,
Those
that
were
was
dope.
like one of the coolest boxes because it had so much stuff in it.
Yeah, I bought the Lunar 2 complete, and it comes with like a hardbound art book with a book, like a ribbon bookmark built into it, like a Bible or something. And it came with a replica pendant of Lucia, one of the characters from the game, like real full size necklace. And like I was in 5th grade when I bought that. I was like wearing it around, thought I was cool. Comes with all this stuff, big old poster, big old this that. They really knew how to sell that.
It's funny you mentioned that book. I remember like whenever I would come over to your house, I remember seeing that book out like at all times. Like you were either reading it or looking at like the guide or whatever.
It's dope decoration too. It's a nice looking art book.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's super cool. And I think they even have like interviews with like the developers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
they had a whole behind the scenes DVD that shows like how they made some of their anime scenes and everything.
It was a CD.
Yeah, it was a CD. Yeah,
Wow.
pardon me. Yeah, you just pop it straight into your PS1 or 2, right? And then it was really cool because it was like real camera footage, just like, talking about like all the PR being released leading up to the game and the hype and everything. Like, and that game was such a huge cult classic, or I guess not cult classic in Japan because everyone was into it, but like I guess they were issuing days off of work in like tons and tons of businesses across the nation when Lunar 2 came out because it was so anticipated after Lunar 1 was such a hit.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Tons
in
of
Japan,
people took work off to play Lunar 2 when it came out.
Interesting. I did not know that.
The people of Japan as a whole cannot be wrong, guys. Play Lunar 2.
Exactly.
Oh, and also, listeners, if you have played Lunar 1 or 2, definitely leave us a comment shouting it out, as that's one of our favorite series. And which is your favorite? Because I think 1 and 2 are of really, really comparable quality. I think they have characteristics of both that are really awesome that one has and the other doesn't, and vice versa. So it'd be interesting to hear if people like one or two more. I think I'm the only person who's beaten both.
Yeah, I've only beaten one. I played 2.
Yeah, I've played quite a bit of 2. I never beat it though.
For sure. I think I would have to pick 2. But that I just think some of the characters are cooler and a little more memorable. But anyways, I think that's probably enough on Lunar, huh? We got some more activities here planned for the episode. It'd be good to get into those.
Absolutely.
So, what do you got for us, Nick?
Our favorite boss battles.
Or I would say
wow.
most memorable, I believe, is the way we wanted to word it. Because for better or worse, they could be boss battles that were memorable because they were bad or because they were really fun and they had memorable moments tied to the story or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, yeah, I think it's important to delineate that these can be memorable for being very awesome or being very shitty.
Yeah, just very, you play it, you forgot to save for like the last 2 hours, and you just get destroyed because of how dumb it is, and you're like, well, I'm not playing this for another week.
Yeah, we've all been to those.
So I feel like I'm going to toss one out that we probably all have on our list.
Yeah, before we begin, pardon me, you want to do like a 3 each? We don't have to expound on all of them really deeply, but I'd say, just to have a little structure.
Okay.
All right. So Taylor.
I'll take one for the team because I think this is one we all would probably have on our list. But I'm going to say Weegraph from Final Fantasy Tactics, and I would say
Weegraph at Ryovan's castle at the end of Chapter 3.
Yes,
because there's multiple. Weegraph
there's
fights.
true. There's Weegraph in
Chapter 1.
The windmill or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say unquestionably he's the hardest boss in the game. Even way harder than the final boss. Like the final boss is a joke in comparison.
Yeah.
Because I think
more on that later.
Yeah, and I think he's not hard. I mean, he's hard on his own because he casts Cyclops and destroys 3 of your party members if you're not spread out. But then he also has those gargoyles that just do tons of damage.
Well, you're talking about. God help us if there's spoilers. But so Weegraph has a second phase to his fight where he becomes stronger, and at that point he calls some demons to help him too, and it's he's just uber strong and has all this help that are these demons that you haven't even seen in the game before with all these nasty spells. But even before that, it's just him
and
versus
Ramza.
Your main character, just one-on-one, and you have to take him down as Ramza. But he does 286 damage per turn, 100% chance.
Yeah.
And blocks almost all of your attacks. So you literally have to just keep trying that fight with Ramza until he makes a mistake or you just land all your attacks or critical or something. And then once you beat that part, the second phase of the fight begins. And it's way more ridiculous.
I feel like a pretty pro strat for that fight is to have. You have to have auto potion on Ramza and not have regular or high potions.
Yeah,
and
so
no matter what, he heals himself for the most possible health he possibly can or whatever.
The crazy part about that fight is if you don't do that, it's almost impossible.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah,
because I feel like sometimes you could be really crazy and make Ramza a priest or something. I don't know why you do that, but
or you could do. I've heard another strategy where you make him a chemist, give him a gun, and have him run around the edge of the map while he's shooting Weegraph from a distance, and Weegraph can't catch you.
That's interesting.
But that is also an incredibly chicken shit way to go about the fight.
Hey, it's one way to do it. But yeah, I can't tell you how many times I died, restarted, and it's a lot of luck too, because sometimes you get critical strikes, maybe if you don't move your guys in the right way or who he targets, it's so random.
I remember playing that and I lost half of my main cast. And I beat it, and I was like, I don't care. I am going.
They turned into crystals last time, or they died? Wow.
Oh, my God.
That's brutal.
I think that was my first playthrough.
Yeah, the reckless abandon of youth would allow that to happen. But, so, from how we've described it so far, Taylor, I think that fight just sounds like misery. So just talk about what makes it so great.
I think it's just challenging, because I think it puts... The game is a strategy RPG, and I think it puts your strategy wits to work almost no other fight in the game, because it's okay, do we just focus fire on Bellius? I think is the creature he turns into, or
dang it, Taylor!
What?
Nothing. To keep going.
What?
We were trying to keep it, free of all.
Oh, this game's so old. If you haven't played Tactics by now, then get with the program.
It's for posterity. All right,
there's gonna be a timestamp. They could skip it.
All right. Anyway, yeah, so Because it's like, okay, do you focus fire on his final form, or do you do I whittle down the gargoyles, which is probably a waste of time,
Right, because you can focus all your attacks on Weegraf to try to get him down and end the fight, but then having all the gargoyles around burning you down might make that an impossibility, so you really got to make a tough decision there.
And the real problem is that, he's in the very back, just casting summons the whole fight, and then, these gargoyles are, in front of him, so you have to, go through them. I think that's how it is, right?
I think it depends on what his AI decides, because I think there's some scenarios, depending on where your party members are, where he'll charge forward.
Can he petrify you too?
I think that's what Cyclops does. I think it throws random status effects or something, right?
Yeah. It also just does a butt ton of cold damage.
Yeah.
But either way, that's probably enough on Weegraf. Totally agree. Epic fight. It's one of those boss fights that is great because leading up to it and throughout and after, your heart is just beating outside of your chest.
Mm-hmm.
I think before the boss fight, the scene before it,
dude, the cinematics of it is so awesome. You walk in and there's all the corpses around him, and he's just got his back to you.
Yeah,
just turns around to face you.
No, I'm thinking
one-on-one.
Even before that, when you're not even Ramza, you're just
Alma.
You're Alma, and all you hear is.
Yeah, you're in the next room and you just hear people getting just butchered and screaming.
Yep.
And then you walk in as Ramza and just witness the aftermath and have to take on the guy who's responsible.
And to be
so good.
And this isn't technically the same fight, but even the roof after, where you have to fight
Elmador, Celia, and Lead.
That's those guys can one shot you.
They have they each have an ability where they can cast stop on one of your characters at 100% effectiveness.
So dumb.
From 8 spaces away. And if they're in melee range, they can just kill you instantly. It's just called stop bracelet.
I thought it was called
and they just punch you and you die.
Yeah,
and that's it.
And you got
100%.
There's another fight later where you actually have to kill all those guys, and that one's pretty hard too.
In Limberry Castle.
Yeah, that one's tough.
Well, in the original Tactics, that's where you get all the Genji armor and weapons. Which getting all of those from Elmador is one of the great RPG badges of achievement that you can ever have is to have a tactics file with complete Genji armor and Masamune. It's just
steal everything from
madman
him.
Status.
You basically would have to not attack him and try to heal everybody while you're attempting to steal over and over, right?
Not to go too far into tactics, but it's an interesting argument whether or not that Limberry Castle fight versus Marquise Elmador is harder than the Weegraf fight, because both of them are complete insanity.
They're hard for different reasons, right? Because one is okay, well, somebody's gonna get one shot. Do I spread them out Well,
and plus in that fight, Elmador gives everyone the vampire status effect.
Oh
which
yeah,
you lose control of them, and that character starts giving vampire to everyone else.
Ugh, yeah.
God,
what a nightmare.
Let's move on. I'm starting to get some PTSD stress reactions here.
Yeah. So why don't we go in a circle? So Nick, why don't you go next with one of your?
Oh, I just totally blanked.
Okay, well then Connor.
All right, moving on. Well, what's funny is I did have a comment on the last boss of Tactics, but I'll save that for later. Okay. I'm gonna be super predictable and go with the boss from my favorite game, Xenogears. Mm-hmm. And okay, so this boss is called Ophiomorph, and it's very close to the end of the game when everything is starting to go bat guano crazy, as far as plot, and the whole world is falling apart around you. Long story short, you come up against one of the most powerful people left living on the planet, piloting this gear, Ophiomorph, and that name means nothing to you guys, but when I hear it, I just go. I get a shiver because it's the most insane, maybe even more difficult than Weegraf or Elmador boss battle.
Really?
Where, so I'll preface this by saying when you're fighting in your robots in Xenogears, you have a finite amount of fuel that all your abilities spend, and you can't restore it, and there's no healing spells for when your gear is hurt. You can only use this ability called Frame HP Fix, which uses half of your fuel. So to heal yourself in robot form, it's really, really costly. And so basically, you're fighting Ophiomorph. Everyone's in their robots. And on the first turn of the game, she uses this move called Wave Oppressor number 4. It's kind of a cool name. And reduces all of your characters, or all your robots' HP to 1 on the first turn of the fight.
Oh, wow. So you're forced to use that healing
So basically,
ability?
you have to expend all your fuel healing all your characters on the first fight. And then Ophiomorph doesn't do anything for 3 turns. And so you charge up your abilities, get your hits in, heal yourself, and then she'll count down from there. And right before the countdown reaches 0, she'll hit everyone for a small amount of damage, like which if you had 1 HP would kill you.
Yeah.
And then the turn after that casts Oppressor number 4 again. And basically, so every 4 turns, all of your gear's HP gets reduced to 1. And it's just like... So you basically have like a finite amount of turns to kill her before you're just inevitably dead.
Yeah.
And that one, like I said about Wiegraf, is just one of those fights that gets your heart bursting out of your chest. It's beating so hard. Because you're just like racing against the clock of death to try to get this. And plus, the robot... Opiomorph itself looks completely badass. It's really like serpentine and like 10 times larger than any of your gears, so it just has that feeling of just, for lack of a better word, epicness.
Nice.
So with that, Nick, I kick it to you. Is your mind still blank?
No, I have one.
Okay.
Not blanker than it normally is.
Yeah, not blanker than it normally is. And I'm not going to be able to follow up with that kind of description of your favorite boss battle. But one of mine is from Tales of Destiny Remake. Which
you hold as one of the best RPGs ever made.
Yes. One of the... let's go back to Tales of Destiny, the first one. You have to... At the end of the game, you have to charge your... You have to like find like a special Swordian lab to make them more powerful. Mm-hmm. And in that one, you at the end of the lab, you're like, oh, well, here's the upgrade. So put the sword in the thing, and you'll upgrade it.
Okay.
Yeah, simple. This one, the remake, they changed it where you had to like go into this like chamber, and you would like it'll put you to sleep, and you would have to fight your Swordian's consciousness.
With your consciousness.
Oh,
wow.
To prove yourself. Mm-hmm. And so you have to fight Dimlos. And like you see Dimlos.
Let me guess, he's talking a bunch of smack to Stan, telling him how worthless he is.
Kind of. He's like, prove yourself to me, and and it's just like it's a 1-on-1 battle, and you both have the flame sword, Dimlos, and it's like a fighting game. You have to like time your dodges perfectly, and
so it's not like a regular battle.
No, it is a regular battle.
Oh, interesting.
But it's the same idea behind doing a fighting game fight.
Mm-hmm. Because it's 1-on-1, and you're just like, you have to dodge right, and if you hit him correctly, you just do your combo, and then you have to watch out because sometimes you could see him when he's like, oh, he's about to do this super powerful move if you get hit.
So just like a straight up 1-on-1 like fencing duel.
Yeah, and it's just like it's in like a really epic area, and you're just like, I just love this. I just love that story.
That sounds awesome. Having played the original Tales of Destiny, but not the remake, I really wish I could have played that part. Yeah. It sounds awesome.
I had it recorded, and I lost it because Twitch deleted it. Sadly.
Oh,
boo boo boo.
But it was such a good. It's not really a spoiler, but
We'll tell you what. Let's speed up our rounds here. Since we've all shared one now, we'll share our last two just kind of in quick succession. What do you say?
Sure.
So Taylor, back to you.
So I don't quite remember what the name of this boss is, but it's in Persona 4, and it's like this. It's like a baby that constantly has like you break down its shield to do damage to it, and then it keeps building the shield back up. You know what I'm talking? It's in the video game castle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
So it's like this endurance fight, and it's not necessarily like too hard, but it's just like. I don't know. There's like a certain rhythm to it. It's like, okay, the shields go down, so blast him. And
it's not even a shield. It's just he's in like a pixel block, like soldier shield thing.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture.
Like imagine like an 8-bit like just soldier. Like it just can't move, but it's like built with like what they call vox, like a 3D pixel. So it looks all blocky.
Gotcha.
But I think the fight itself is memorable for that reason. Like you have to figure out the rhythm and stuff like that, but then I think what happens after it, which would be a giant spoiler if you've never played Persona, so I can't really go too much into it, but like, man, I don't know how to talk around this.
The payoff after it is basically like even more awesome than the fight.
I think.
Yeah,
I don't think that happens in the game. I think that's only
only in the anime. Are you sure? I guess I can't remember, but if okay, maybe I'm wrong then. But either way, that fight is cool, and if there's a revelation that happens, I guess, to keep it vague, because you think something of a person, and you're like, oh, okay, that's not what I thought, and then yeah. Anyway,
Big revelation happens, and it's very memorable.
Yeah. So again, trying to keep
I'll
it
take
vague.
your word for it, Taylor.
But I guess that's all I'll say about that one. But it's cool also because it's got like kind of like chiptune music, and like it's trying to be all 16-bit, 8-bit kind of music. So the whole thing is like a throwbacky type lead up, and
the chiptunes version of the boss battle.
Bing, 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 bing. Yeah,
I hated. I
cool.
hated that dungeon so much.
Oh, the dungeon is annoying, but
Yeah.
the boss fight's cool. Anyway, Nick, Connor, whoever wants to go next.
I'll throw it in there. I guess the one I said before, this is kind of similar to that. I'll pick a different one. Okay, so mine is from Radiata Stories, and the only people who will have even battled this boss, let alone defeated her, are the most hardcore of Radiata Stories fans, because like the main story in that game, it's fairly easy to beat. Like you don't have to be really intense to beat the last boss, you know? But then there's like 3 entire side dungeons that are all side quests that become available once you beat the main game, and those are like the real challenges for the real hardcore Radiata Stories players. And so scattered through those like 3 side dungeons, first it's like the dragon corridors, and then it's like the distortion hallway or something. Either way, these crazy dungeons, but these really nasty bosses are scattered through all of them. And at the very, very end, the hardest boss in the game, you come across Ethereal. Her name is the Ethereal Queen, and basically, like you have the strongest characters and items and armor and weapons and everything in the game at this point, and it's just like the anticipation as you get ready to walk up to this boss is just the anxiety through the roof, because you know it's like this is your final test, you know, and the fight itself is complete madness where you have to actually keep all your characters on the outer rim of the fighting area, because she just bombards the entire middle area with like these giant Armageddon like fireballs the entire time. Jeez. And so half of the fight is just running away from like hell raining from the skies, and when there's tiny breaks you run in there and just hit her with everything you got and then get the hell out of there again. It's just that, and it just drags on and on. You just like 46,000 HP, which is in that game is just absolutely monumental. But nothing could ever match my satisfaction when I finally took her down after like 5 or 6 tries. So shout out to the Ethereal Queen for being one of the nastiest challenges I've ever overcome in RPGs.
Bazam.
And shout out to Radiata Stories for just being amazing. Play that game.
There you go. Lots of shout outs this episode.
Yeah, talk about an underrated gem on PS2.
Ooh,
Yeah,
God.
so
yeah,
good.
totally lost in a sea of mediocre, forgettable PS2 RPGs.
You know what is an unknown gem? Is the game, the boss battle, or the boss. The game, what my boss is from.
There you go, buddy.
Persona 4.
Keep trying.
Oh, another Persona 4 one. All right. So which
Sensing
one?
it
Which
being
one?
here.
I'm joking. It's not an underrated gem, but you know, Persona 4. The final boss.
Oh, the true ending.
The
boss?
true ending boss.
I do have to say, it's really hard to nail a final boss.
Yes.
Like, a lot of games fall short or stumble or make it too hard or too easy, because it's hard to figure out where the majority of players are by the time they get there. You know, are they really strong? Did they grind a lot? Or did they just get to that point in the game? So it's like, do you make the boss aim towards the hardcore players who are probably really strong by the end of the game, or more towards the casual players, where then the hardcore fans will just roll right over the final boss, and it's kind of feels underwhelming. That being said,
this boss is kind of a secret. So it's like the true ending boss, if you get what I mean. So there's the ending boss, but there's another boss afterwards.
Sounds complicated.
It is very complicated. But I can't really spoil anything, but it's just the whole boss itself is it's very story driven. So it's like very emotional and everything like that, and like the way you defeat her is just like so awesome, because it's just like your character just becomes a total badass, and you're like, you know what, F you, man, and you just become super powerful and just destroy her.
So it's epic for like story reasons. Kind
Yeah,
of, is what you're saying.
Because it just what happened just is awful and then it's awful that what happens, but then you like recover from it and it's just awesome. But nice. I wish I could say more, but you haven't played it yet, so
I'll take your word for it being totally awesome.
It is really awesome. It's just it's very satisfying, which Persona 3 was not. What about you? Do you have another one, Taylor?
I guess my last one. I mean, I want to throw something out from Final Fantasy 7.
I feel like most people who listen to this probably expected our first few answers to all be from like FF7 through 9.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple that you could potentially throw out. Right? Like I feel like for me, I don't know why, but Carry Armor always stuck out as a hard one.
I was going to say him too.
Demon's Gate, obviously, because you're forced to use Aeris, and most people don't use Aeris, so she's like super weak.
Demon's Gate's on my list, man.
But I think I'm gonna pick Sephiroth just because I just thought of this. I totally, it slipped my mind that this happens. But in the whole game, you have your party of 3, right? But when you fight Safer Sephiroth, it asks you to make a second party, and that like kind of blew my mind. I'm like, what?
That's Bizarro Sephiroth.
Oh, Bizarro. Sorry,
that's phase 1 of 3.
Right.
We don't just. For the listeners, we don't give a damn about spoiling FF7.
No, that's like way past.
That's time. If you lived in the suburbs, you were issued a copy of FF7, so like that's your fault if you didn't beat it.
Right. But yeah, it's just cool because I'm like, oh, that's neat. I've never done this the entire game. I get to make a second party because they've never died, but I guess the assumption is, oh, your total combined, you're not strong enough to beat them. So like have this party over here, and if they die, then you can just go back to your main party. But then we were talking about this before, how Safer Sephiroth is a little bit easy. Like I can remember the last time I played Final Fantasy VII. I mean, I have, I've min-maxed the hell out of this game. I know the best characters. Right. I know the best limit breaks. So
for us, it's easy. Yeah.
Right. So I just used like summons and Ultima and stuff like that on Bizarro Sephiroth, so it was really easy. Then you go into Safer Sephiroth, and I just rattled off Omni Slash, all of Tifa's limit breaks, and then Highwind, and he's just dead before you even get a chance to attack. And I'm like,
it doesn't even take a turn.
Okay. I didn't like going into that fight when I did that. I didn't know if I was going to be able to kill him, but I did. I'm like, oh, okay, that's awesome.
One thing that does bear, showing some respect for in the Safer Sephiroth fight is the song "One Winged Angel."
Oh, dude, that is like the greatest boss songs like of all time. Easily the most iconic.
Like if top 5 boss songs, that's like 1 or 2. Yeah. That's like top 3 easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, if you the listeners have not listened to this, just YouTube One Winged Angel live and watch the Distant Worlds, is that the name? Orchestra play One Winged Angel. It won't send chills down your spine. It will freeze your spine into a giant glacier. It'll give you so many chills.
Didn't you go to like a Final Fantasy concert and they did that song and everyone was singing the choir?
Before they performed it, the conductor turned around and was like, okay, so at this part I'm going to turn around and motion you guys, and when I say, when it's the part in the song where they say Sephiroth, you guys are going to do it because we don't have a choir with us.
Oh.
So we were like, okay. And right when the part comes in, dun, 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 he turns around, points to the crowd, Sephiroth, and we nailed it every time. I probably still have the footage on my phone, but that's another story.
I'll just say this, Sephiroth is such an iconic fight that he is also a fight in, I think, both Kingdom Hearts main 1 and 2. Like he's like a side boss fight that you can go fight in the Coliseum, and he's like super hard. He's like really, really hard in that game. So
imagine that.
He's a boss fight in many games. But.
Well, it's funny that you picked Bizarro / Safer Sephiroth for one of your most memorable fights, because that's like one of the best or worst fights.
Yeah,
like as far as boss battle difficulty, how it's said, because like. If you do all the side quests in FF7, like if you're a completionist, then the final boss is a joke.
Yeah.
But that's why the Emerald Ruby weapons exist, though.
Yeah,
it's for people who rise above the regular difficulty curve.
That is one thing I have never done, is beaten either of them. And
really?
Yeah, I just never got around to it or cared to do.
Oh,
so I want to, before the remake comes out, I want to platinum the PS4 version. Like that can't be hard,
right?
Especially for us. And I'm assuming 2 of the trophies are beat Emerald weapon and Ruby weapon. So,
totally.
I don't know what the strategy is. I think it's like Knights of the Round, mime, something insane.
It's too long to go over here.
It's like something ridiculous. But anyway.
Shout out to that boss fight, by the way, just like as far as ridiculous difficulty, because they really nailed it. And like, oh yeah, you guys want an endgame boss fight? Yeah, here you go, suckers. Like, more than you bargained for.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Awesome boss fights. So Nick and I will both just share one more, but I'll just gloss over it
Okay.
for the sake of time. This is a tough one. I already went with Opiomorph. I'm going to do a shout out to some really crappy boss fights.
Okay.
Maybe crappy isn't the right word, but hilariously ineffective bosses. There's two in Final Fantasy VIII, and there's one in Final Fantasy VII. I think there's more, but it's undead bosses that can be killed with a Phoenix down. Because a lot of times they have the most intense like entrances or like intros, or like they show up onto the screen, no one can match my power, and you're like, oh crap, this is about to be a crazy boss fight.
Yeah.
Oh wait, he's undead. Use a Phoenix down on him. Instant death.
Yep.
And he goes through like the really exaggerated, like destruction animation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you just went through this really difficult fight and really you just clicked item, scroll the Phoenix down,
Yep.
You're dead. So just for posterity, the three bosses that's capable, or the three bosses that's possible with, are Guy Natak, the big undead boss from the Cave of the Gi and under Cosmo Canyon.
Yeah,
it's Red 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then Giro from FF8, when you try to assassinate or you try to kidnap the president of Galbadia, and they put the fake president there.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
You accidentally capture the fake president, and he turns into this really
weird
heinous creature, which you destroy instantly with zero effort. And then also in FF8, in the Great Salt Lake on Disc 3, you're going through, which is a really great dungeon area. You're going through this beautiful landscape, and then this giant, 8-foot story demon flies out from behind this giant rock, and just, classic. Just no explanation. All of a sudden, you're fighting this guy.
Yeah.
Boom. Have a Phoenix down.
Interesting. I didn't know that. If I ever go back and replay 8, which I might, but I'll have to try that out.
Well, if you ever go and replay 8, I will coach you, because I have just encyclopedic knowledge of every goddamn thing in that one.
You know what I want to do?
What do you want to do?
I want to get, when you get guns in Final Fantasy Tactics, I want to make a party full, just all chemists with auto potions.
Yeah.
And then you just beat the game that way.
That would be so ridiculous.
Give them all a blaze gun, hide on one side of the map, and just shoot everyone to death on the other side.
Yep. That's what I want to do.
Seems legit.
All right, okay, so with mine, I'm going to... Whoa, don't want to mess that up. With that, a game that no one really talks about, and actually here, Grandia 2 has a boss battle. It just randomly goes, the difficulty just spikes. Like you're just running through this thing, and then you fight this thing. You're running through the game, just destroying everything, and or you don't really have a problem with it. It's not easy, but
you're just walking through the game.
You're just walking through it, and then you get to this boss called Valmar's Eye. And it just, if you don't know what you know, this is your first playthrough of Grandia 2, you're going to get destroyed.
Kind of like Demon's Gate, where you're like, oh, everything's going pretty well.
Oh,
who's this guy? Splat. You just get crushed.
Yeah, it's just, he has the main body, and then he has I think 4 other flying eyes that do these moves, what's called triad attack, and it just each eye is an enemy, so they get to attack lots of times, and they each do the stupid triad attack, and it does half your health each time. So it's bam, 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 and
I can see how that gets old real fast.
Yeah, you're just stop it. Ah! But yeah, I know how to play that game now, so it's a lot easier. But I could tell you that when your first playthrough, you're just gonna be randomly what the hell, man? What am I supposed to do?
That's just minding your own business, having a nice stroll through the forest, and then whoop, fell through the ground. There's a punji pit. You're impaled. Congratulations. Have a nice day.
Dead.
Well,
speaking of Grandia, though, it's a total tangent. I just remember playing. I just remember playing Grandia 1 as a kid, and I didn't use magic at all, and I got stuck. because I didn't know how to do the magic system at all. So all my characters just did normal attacks. And somehow I got like through 3/4 of the game, and then I got to a part where I had to use magic, and I couldn't beat the boss.
Whoops.
And then
Got the old banana in the tailpipe there.
yeah, and I just remember I was like, I think about it now. I'm like, how did I not know how to use magic? Did I sell all the things I needed to make magic?
Fool of a chook.
No, man, yeah. Just that's a funny memory I had.
Well, guys, I think that you, the listener, should tell us what your favorite boss battles are, because there are far too many for us to cover here, and there's tons that I didn't get to, and same for you guys. But that being said, I think this is a good place to wrap up for this episode. And so that being said, thanks for tuning in this week. From me, Connor, Nick, and Taylor, this is the GSP Podcast.